How's it going, everybody? Hope you're all doing well. So today we're back here with the DVO, or the actual contracted DVO, and I have a fairly decent discussion about it that I want to share with you, and from a military individual that uses this in the military perspective of it. Now, I am not honestly impressed overall with the DOD selecting this particular optic. Now, first off, I'm not hating on the optic itself. I'm talking about them implementing and replacing other legacy systems on legacy carbines. That's the issue that I'm going to discuss. So I don't think this is a bad optic. It's actually fairly good. It's just in the way that the DOD has selected it. So there are two sections of this video. One, and we're going to be talking about the optic itself, and second is going to be talking about specifically how this optic is being implemented onto specific rifles. So two different discussions in essence, and they both kind of come together for one conclusion. So this is the DVO, right? Down here is the MSR Tango 1-6, which is a cheaper variant, right? This one's probably about $300, which is very similar realistically to the DVO. It's just the DVO is a first focal plane, this is second focal plane, this is $300, this is $2,200. Also, it comes with some other nice options and other things, glass clarity, right? Different electronics, a little bit beefier, a little bit heavier, but besides the point, they're fairly similar. So, why is this a poor choice? Well, we got to look where we've been to look where we're going, in essence. Okay, so what are we currently using? TA31 ACOG right now is typically in use, and the aim point, which we're not going to discuss the aim point because that is a red dot sight and it doesn't have magnification, so it's not really closely resembling this type of optic. It's in magnification. So the TA31 ACOG. So typically when I upgrade my gear, regardless whatever gear it is, I always go like performance over what I currently have. Like, for instance, I have a normal canteen. Okay, should I go to a titanium canteen? What are my benefits? It's cost analysis. Is it going to give me more things? Anything should be done with that. As in looking at this optic going, okay, what will this do that what we currently have doesn't do, or it'll do better? Now, when looking at this in paper, which is typically the issue, is a lot of higher up military brass will look at things on paper and never actually actually use it in the field. And on paper, this optic looks really good. But when you compare it to the TA31, it starts to kind of not look that great. And I don't think they did a great comparison with it. That's the issue. So we're gonna dive into the technical specs of it. So this optic right here, right? And we're gonna be comparing this to the TA31 ACOG, like I said. This thing right here is 28 ounces. All right, so this is a 28 ounce optic as it sits. The ACOG, the TA31, is 14.7. So we pretty much doubled the weight. Next, how size related is this? This is a large optic, and you can see how much space it actually takes up on this rail. The ACOG is 5.9 inches. This is 10.4. So we grew in weight and we grew in size, all right? Next is cost. This is $2,200. The ACOG, $1,100. So we're almost doubling the cost. Close to it, a little bit less. But that means taxpayers like yourself are gonna have to pay more, in essence, for potentially less of a capability or less of an optic. Or in this case, more of an optic because it's heavier. Next, going on from that, battery life. TA31 has tritium and it has fiber optic. Fiber optic, realistically, if you don't break it, it will continually run indefinitely. Like, there is no battery life. Tritium inside ACOGs are good for about, the half-life is about 12 years. So they're gonna progress probably about 22 to 24 years before they fully die out and you can't see it. So a 24-year battery life in essence, even though it's not batteries, it's just tritium. But this has 100 hours. Now, personally, I've tested it. They say this has like the whole shake awake feature or whatever, or it'll auto shut off when it's not being used or not being moved. I tested that, and this is a DOD contracted SIG. I couldn't get it to work. I literally set it on my workbench, put it in the vise, and every 15 minutes I'd come over, take a peek inside. For 3 hours, it didn't turn off. So maybe it's like, oh, well, it's at the 4-hour mark, it'll turn off. Okay, so why is it just sitting there burning battery when I only have 100 hours battery life? Plus it uses a watch battery, which in the field, me using this operationally, I've seen other folks around me lose the battery cap to these. So user error, maybe, sure. But I'm saying there's more things to go wrong with it. As in the ACOG, you had 2 things, which is like your windage. That's it, your windage and elevation. Unscrew those things, and they were tethered too with little wire cables. So you couldn't even lose them even if you really wanted to, unless you cut the cable, which I get it. Regardless of that, 100 hours of battery life. Now, where it starts to get into it, right, is magnification. This is where your argument, or folks that are upset, or folks that want to like this optic for the DOD is going to argue. This gives you a 1 to 6 power capability, adjustable, right? You can adjust this, anything in between, and folks will say, oh, well, that's, you know, more beneficial, or that is technically better in essence, because, oh, if I only need 2 power here, then I'm good, and only need like 4.5 power or 6 power, you can dial it in. Cool, that sounds pretty good for the most part. Granted, I never had an issue with 4 power, even taking shots out to 600 meters, which is the max range for an M4A1, right? On an area target, 600 meters, point target is being your 500 meters. So observation purposes is another argument. Okay, I do like that it has more capability, as in 6 power and 1. But why can't we do that with the ACOG? The ACOG, you can stack a red dot on top and the ACOG on the bottom. So you have 1 power and 4 power, and you don't have to release your hand from the gun or anything like that, right? You can just immediately, you know, switch to the red dot, as in you see here the LCAN, as another example, red dot on top, LCAN on the bottom. All you gotta do is raise your eye to go back to that 1 power immediately. I don't have to take my hand off my weapon system and dial it in. Okay, arguments. You could say, hey, you're being petty. Valid, sure, I am. But in the moment, it's kind of a hassle when I'm like, oh, I need to go to 1. I can flip it over to the side. I just prefer the ACOG being on top. Now, could you put a red dot on top here? Yes, you could, but that's gonna add even more weight to it. Let's say we put a red dot on top or off to the side. Let's say we get a contract, it goes through, the military, you can use it. You're pushing 31 ounces. The ACOG already solved that problem, and the LCAN, years ago, and it's 16 ounces. So again, for the same capability, you're doubling the weight. All what you're getting is 2 extra power, 2 magnification more, all right, and adjustability. That's it. You're getting more adjustability and 2 more power magnification. Now, if it was this weight and we had 8 power or 10 power, that would be a strong argument, in my opinion. Stronger, let's say. So, heavier, more expensive, larger, right? Battery life is worse, and all you're getting out of it is 2 extra power and being able to flip back and forth, which technically the ACOG already solved. You can do the bind and aiming concept, and you can, you know, both eyes open, and you can shoot close quarters on 4 power if you really have to. Eye relief, arguable. Eye relief was very scrutinized over the ACOG because you need to be very close, nose to charging handle. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people didn't like that it didn't have an adjustable diopter. I understand that. But people that complained or have issues with the diopter are technically older individuals. You know, you'll hear 40s, 50s, and 60s like age individuals, and they're like, well, I like the diopter because I can change it to my eyesight. Okay, valid point. But we don't have that many 50 and 60-year-olds in active military service using carbines, attacking threats and defending assets, right? They're all 18 to like 35, 40 years old, right? Right in that realm. Not really having a lot of eyesight issues that corrective lenses won't correct, right? So when they say, oh, well, we have better adjustability for your eyes. Okay, here's an 18-year-old. His eyes are probably perfect. Why? The ACOG was fine. It worked great. There was no adjustability. Again, if we could get the same weight, same price as the ACOG and same capabilities, again, I'm all for it. But again, it keeps sloping down to the other side. Next, NVG use with this. I actually recently tested it out again because I wanted to confirm my suspicion, which I used it in an urban environment and I used it in a rural environment. Urban-wise, the NVG settings on this work fairly well. Okay, so you can kind of use it. If you're looking into a dark area, it's getting kind of difficult even through different settings. Rural, if you are out in the countryside, good luck. You're not going to see through this. Even using an AT-PLC or a PEC 15 or a laser aiming module with the IR flashlight or flood, you're still not getting enough light transmission through this. Arguable, the ACOG had the same problem, but the ACOG was a little bit easier to mess around with because of the tritium. Could it be done? Yes, it was awkward. Again, we're not solving anything in the night vision realm because you still need the PEC 15 or the AT-PLC. This is active aiming. There's almost impossible to do passive aiming through this unless you're in an urban, fairly well lit condition. Maybe it was just my area, which, you know, woods and whatnot around. I was even in open fields like this in the middle of the night, and I could not see targets literally 30 meters away using PVS 14 White Phos 3rd Gen night vision, right on my head, looking through it. There's not enough light transmission. The ACOG, since it was so short, had a big objective lens, it could pull in a little more light, and it was still doable. Now, again, I still prefer the LCAN. The LCAN, again, does really well on that. I wouldn't say well, not really well, but much better than this. Larger objective lens, shorter all over distance for the light to transfer through that. Makes sense. Same with the ACOG. Again, that's the issue. Okay, mounting and placement issues. You have to mount this thing very far forward, and that is frustrating because the end has to be pretty much at your charging handle or the objective or the diopter here. It has to be pretty much at the charging handle, and you have to be fairly far back. It's not nose to charging handle anymore. You get massive scope shadow if you start pushing up. So what I find is I have to start extending my stock further and further out, which is frustrating because when you're wearing plate carrier and body armor, the M16 style all the way out is frustrating for some people. So they like to bring in their stock closer because of all that excess, you know, padding and whatnot. So bring it in closer. So now I have to go back further out. And the longer you get that rifle out there, the more weight is hanging off the front of your rifle. And some people are going to say, oh, we'll get to the gym more. Sure, it's an easy just ha-ha, call you out, go to the gym, that type of stuff. But realistically, over time, it is going to fatigue you. Even if you go to the gym every single day and you're jacked and whatnot, it is still going to fatigue faster than legacy other products like the ACOG. For what capabilities yet again? All right, so where I could see this coming into the market, right? Well, before I get there, we were talking about the optic itself. Now let's talk about the M4 carbine. It is trying. The DOD is placing this optic onto the legacy M4 carbine, right? Or M4A1 now that we're upgrading back to full auto, which, yeah, it's odd. Anyways, there's not a lot of rail space. Now, of course, special forces, special operators, that kind of stuff, they don't really have this issue because they already have, you know, different rail systems added on. They have a different upper and stuff. I'm talking about the common troops here, common folks, right? All the infantry guys, you know, all like normal security guys, MPs, stuff like that. They have this system and they need a PEC 15 or a laser aiming module to shoot for night vision because you're not getting it out of this. So now you just added so much stuff onto this that you need more rail space. That's the issue, is they're trying to adapt this light or this sight onto this rifle. Now, if we upgraded the rail, right, and did the Daniel Defense one with the rail in the front, and then you put your PEC in the front, that could work. You could keep your iron sights. Again, that's another issue, is you have to remove your iron sights, the traditional Maytech or the Knight's Armament ones. You can fit Magpul in here, but they haven't, at least my unit and the other units I've been a part of, have not purchased that. They don't see it really being necessary. Okay, Is it possible it's just frustrating that we're doing away with rear iron sight? So if we're doing away with the rear, why don't we do away with the front too, right? In essence, and then have the extra rail space that you can push out a little bit further and then get, you know, more stuff out front. But then that comes at a cost because now it's leverage because you have more weight at the front of your gun. Again, I don't think that this optic is great in that selection. Do I think this optic is really good? Standalone, yes. On a modern carbine that's not subjected to the A-frame and the post and then the smaller carbine length, I think this is a really great optic. It's a little heavy for 6 power, in my opinion, but overall, I think it's fairly nice. It's fairly decent. Again, the DOD trying to fit this onto this legacy platform. Not even talking about the Spear, because the Spear has a different optic, technically, and it's for, you know, that 308 or, you know, new 277 Fury and all that, which, yeah, there's ballistics on that, and then there's ballistics on M855A1 along with green tip, and with this carbine, I'm not getting into all that stuff right now. But overall, it's just a bit frustrating that they just went to this. I didn't think there was anything wrong with the ACOG. People are going to argue in the comments, I guarantee it, and say this is much better than the ACOG. Again, double the weight, double the cost, double the size, you know, less capabilities, less battery life. You know, where are we getting benefits other than 2 extra magnification? 2 extra magnification at range, yes, it can help. 500, 600 meters, sure, it helps out PID a little bit. But is it worth all that weight, all that cost, everything that I discussed? So again, this is a bit lengthy of a video, just my opinion. I've tested both of these optics out and I am impressed with the optic. I'm not impressed with it on this carbine. Again, I don't think they should have selected this. I think they should have upgraded the rail system and the front sight post and that first, and then went to this sighting system, maybe. But again, the ACOG was still pretty solid for a lot of troops. So if you guys agree with me a little bit, definitely throw it in the comment section below. If you guys have experience with this optic, as in your unit is using it, you prefer it, definitely leave comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. I've taken information from other units as well that have used this optic, and this is how I'm getting this. Other troops aren't really happy with it. For the most part, they're happy with the more magnification, but all the other downsides, they're not too impressed with it, right? And again, something I didn't even touch on is barriers and shooting in and around barriers and awkward angles. The eye box is, you know, not very forgiving, let's say. Granted, neither was the ACOG, but you could really choke up on the rifle and eliminate a lot of that issues if you were nose to charging handle. But aside from that, I'm diving in back to it again. So, good optic, just not a great selection for the M4A1 for the common infantry dude, in my opinion. But that's just me. If we could have kept all this capability, maybe 1 to 8, 1 to 10, maybe we might be talking there. Oh, okay. So other than that, that was my rant, I guess you could say. It's just my opinion. If you guys like this optic and want to run it and have it on your duty rifle, that's fine. This is just my opinion of what I've seen over many, many years in the military and how the logistics system works, procurement, all that kind of stuff. So, again, like this stuff, like, subscribe, greatly appreciate it with PayPal, Patreon, Amazon affiliates, that kind of stuff. So if you want to help out, I can purchase more items like this, which this is not a cheap optic, $2,200. I can test it and then bring more information forth, which I will be doing about this optic here in the future too. So other than that, hope you all have a great day.